Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We would like to present our material about business letters. The member of group is me, Laela Nur Khamidah, and then Suci Ramadhani, and then Siti Sopiatul Hasanah. The next slide is our table of contents. The first is definition of business letters. The second is business letters form. The third, types of business letters. The fourth, layout of the business letters. And the last is example. The next slide is definition of business letters. Will be presented by me. Business letters is a letter written in formal language usually used when writing from one business organization to another or for correspondence between such organization and their customers, client, and other external parties. A business letter is usually a letter from one company to another or between such organization and their customers, client, and other external parties. The overall style of letters depends on the relationship between the parties concerned. Business letters can have many types of contents. For example, to request direct information or action from another party, to order supplies from a supplier, to point out a mistake by the letter's recipient, to reply directly to a request, to apologize for a wrong, or to convey goodwill. Business letters is sometimes useful because it produces a permanent written record and may be taken more seriously by the recipient than other forms of communication. The last, I mean, the next slide is business letters form. Number one is the letterhead, the sender's address. These letters include the company's logo, slash symbol, slash name, address, zip, telephone number, fax number, email address, and website of the company. Printed at the top center or left or the right side. Sender's address. It is usually given in the letterhead, but if there is none, the sender's name, address, and contact details can be typed. Number two is reference. Include a reference line to identify a file or case number, invoice number, or any other internal identifying information if your company requires one. Some companies have specific reference code that they place either in a reference line below the date or at the every bottom of the letter. The example is ref.hmt slash the date slash the year slash the number of letter. Next is number 3, date. Date consists of the date, name of the month, and the year. In the letter sheet includes a letterhead, types the date from 2 to 3 lines under the letterhead, else type it on the return address. Never send a letter without a date. There is two methods of date. The first is the British methods or ordinal numbers. The example is the first is date 4 and then the month July, comma, the year 2012. And the second is the American method or cardinal numbers. The example is July as a month and then date 4, comma, and then the year 2012. And the next number 4, the inside address, includes the name and address of the firm or individual to whom the letter is written. Written on the left side, beside the margin, 2 spaces below the deadline. Use trace title before name of the receiver, such as Mr., Miss, and the etc. In this slide. There is an example, yeah. And the address can also begin with a job title or a department. I mean, department. If you don't know the name, for example, the sales manager as the job title, and then the account department as a department, and then etc. Next point will be presented by Siti Sopiatul Hasanah. Siti Sopiatul, time yours.
Okay, thank you, Ella. And point number 5 is subject and reservoirs reference name. Subject is used to that the reader immediately knows what your letter is about. Use subject or read subject usually comes between salutation and body. The reservoirs previous letter number is mentioned under the heading reference. This will enable the reservoir to easily take out a copy of his own letter from his files and understand the method in the reply. Example, your reference MEM/ST slash 295 slash 5 date October 2005. Number 6. Salutation. Salutation is part of compliment or greeting written beside the left hand margin. Choose space below the inside address and 2 lines above the body of the letter. It is followed by a comma or a colon. Salutation depends on the gender, type, number, or the social status of the person addressed. Number 7. Body. Pigeons. Choose space below the salutation contains the message or the information to be communicated. Most important, language from young part written incorrect, applying an impressive style, divided normally into 3 parts. The first, introductory paragraph, the second, middle paragraph, and the last, closing paragraph, and the double space between paragraphs. If letter exists one page, repeat the recipient's name, date, reference, or subject line, and foot page number, and continue your letter 3 lines below the heading. Number 8. Complementary clause. It is written 2 spaces below the last line of the body. It is a polite way of saying goodbye. It depends on the tone and degree of formality. Formal, respectfully yours, sincerely yours, faithfully. Informal, cordially yours, warm regards and best wishes. And 9. The signature and designation. Written double space below the complementary clause. First comes signature or handwritten sign your first and last name. Second line until typewritten name. Third line business title. The signature acts as proof. Number 10. Enclosure. This line tells the reader to look in the envelope for more. Write ENC slash ENCL or enclosure below the signature block. If you don't enclose anything, skip it. For example, enclosure colon 39 enclosure colon check and the number 11 reference initial. If someone else has composed type the letter for you, it is common for them to indicate so with initials. Typically, it is your initials in uppercase followed by the other initials is lowercase. Like as SVA or KA or slice KA, I mean, and SVA colon KA or composer or typist. And last, number 12, copy notation. When other people are to receive a copy of the same letter, their names are not either by their length or by alphabetically written just below the reference initials or the enclosure, whichever is last. Type CC before the names if sending a current copy and VC for photocopy. Example: CC Jim Jim Blue Jennifer Lewis. And then next, layout of business letters. Number one, the each line of every part begins at the left margin. At least one line space between each part. Time-saving method and beautiful to look at, also known as American style. Number two, indent. New paragraphs begins about 1,5 centimeters to the right of the left margin. This style is also known as Henny style. This method consumes a lot of time, looks shabby, therefore out of practice. Number three, semi-block or modified block. Some parts are typed in block method and other parts are indented. Return address, date, closing, and signature start just to the right of the center of the page or may be flush with the right margin. Most widely followed method in our country, especially in government office. And this is the example business letters, block style, modified block style, and indented style. You can see the difference about there. Okay, I hope you understood.
Okay, the next is type of business letters will be presented by Suci Ramadhani. Suci Ramadhani, time's yours.
Okay, the next slide is types of business letters. The first is inquiry letters. The letters of inquiry is written to inquire about a product or service. If you have ordered a product and yet not received it, then you can write a letter to inquire when you will be receiving it. Inquiry letters ask a question or elicit information from the recipient. When composing this type of letter, keep it clear and succinct and list exactly what information you need. Be sure to include your contact information so that it's easy for the reader to respond. The next slide is sales letters. Sales letters. Sales letters start off with a very strong statement to capture the interest of the reader. Since the purpose is to get the reader to do something, the letters include strong calls to action, detail of benefit to the reader of taking the action, and including information to help the reader to act, such as including a telephone number or website link. In a sense, every letter a businessman writes is a sales letter because it automatically becomes to showcase from himself or his company. However, there are letters written for the specific purpose of selling a product or a service. Sales letters are used to introduce product to service to customer. The third is cover letter. Cover letter should include a short introduction, highlight the most important information in your resume, and elicit a positive response for your prospective employer. Cover letter usually accompany package, report, or other message. They are used to describe what is enclosed, why it is being sent, and what the receipt should do with it, if there is any action that needs to be taken. Fourth is order letter. Order letter are sent by customer or business to manufacturing. retail or wholesaler to order goods or service. This letter must contain specific information such as model number, name of product, the quantity desired, and expected price. The letter can be used as a legal document to show the transaction between the customer and vendor. And then the last is complaint letters. The words and tone you choose to use in a letter complaining to the business may be the deciding factor or whether your complaint is satisfied. Be directly but thankful and always use a professional tone if you want the company to listen to you. A complaint letter is written to show one that an error has occurred and that needs to be occurred as soon as possible. The letters can be used as a document that was used for warning the letter. And then this is the example for sales letter and inquiry business letter.
The example about sales letter and inquiry business letter. You can find this is the example. Two example, yes. Okay. Ella.
Yeah, that's all our presentation today. This slide is reference if you need some reference. This can be help you to studies about business sectors. That's all our group presentation. I hope this video can be clearly understood. Sorry if there are many mistakes. The last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.